Hello, good morning, everyone, and welcome to Get Hired 2020. It's a virtual hiring event by PWIC and allies. My name is Muazma Zahid, and I am the president of Pakistani Women in Computing and a principal engineering manager at Microsoft. I'm thrilled and excited to be here to welcome 1,500 of you on this amazing hiring event, which has been organized by Pakistani Women in Computing and our great allies. We are super thrilled for a jam-packed agenda for you today with speakers from various industries and different disciplines. Some items for you to remember: if you see something which is inappropriate or it's not following our code of conduct, please reach out to PWIC admin. You can direct message on the right-hand side. During the entire day, you can do live chats. You can actually go to different tables. There is a social lounge. We have hiring representatives on some of those tables as well. And then when the live session starts, you will see a screen like this where you are looking at and listening to the speaker. So without further ado, I would like to introduce our keynote speaker, which is Mayumi Hiramatsu. Mayumi is the Vice President of AWS EC2. She is a veteran of many years of experience in networking, network function virtualizations, and NAT gateway, and she has worked around various industries. She is here with us to share her knowledge and her thoughts about how do you actually navigate your career. I do have one ask for you today. By the end of the day, if you can just make 3 connections and meet 1 hiring representatives, I think it would be a great win for you. So without any further ado, over to you, Mayumi. Thank you.
Thank you, Muazma. Hi, everyone. Really nice meeting you, and welcome to this exciting event. Let's get started. So my name is Mayumi Hiramatsu. I am Vice President at AWS EC2 Networking, and I'm here to share a little bit about my background and then talk a little bit about what are some key career considerations you can consider as you think about growing your career and why I'm here at AWS. I hope that agenda lands well with you, and I'll make sure that I leave about 5 minutes at the end so we have any Q&A that I can address. So let me start with introduction. First of all, I'm Japanese values. My parents are very traditional. I would be told by my father that I should go help my mother in the kitchen because I was raised to be a really good housewife. And thanks to my mom, I'm a really good cook. I'm not really good at cleaning houses, I have to say. And I really love math and technology. It's something that I did really well in and continue to enjoy. And so as I thought about what to do, and my path was pretty set for me to be a really good housewife, I was really torn. And then at 17, I moved to the US. And this was a really hard transition. I had to learn English. Although in Japan, we learn English in school, couldn't really use it. So for me, it was starting over. I had to learn the American culture, the lifestyle, and everything that I enjoy here today. But I didn't have that coming over. I had to make new friends. And in the end, I ended up getting an economics degree. My father is a banker. My brother is a banker. I was pretty set that I wanted to get into business. But then during that time, I was at UC Berkeley and I learned programming. It was because we were going to do things like scenario planning. What happens if the interest rate goes up or inflation changes? To do that, I learned that there is this really powerful thing called software engineering programming, and I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed it so much that I ended up actually becoming a lab assistant over at the computer lab, which I would have never imagined. But with that, it really put me into a technology career that I absolutely love. A little bit about my background. I started off, if you look at the 1 o'clock of this picture, I started off at Charles Schwab, and this was, I'm going to date myself, in the early 90s when web was relatively new. So I really enjoyed what technology could do and the new industry that it could drive. We were one of the earliest and largest online brokerage firms. And then I went to eBay, and this is before Amazon. So we were the largest e-commerce at that time. Then went to PayPal, which was also the largest payment system at that time. Went to Microsoft and worked on one of the largest online services, MSN and Windows Live, and also worked on Blue, which was the code name for Azure today. So I started getting into technology of cloud at Microsoft, worked at Cisco, and helped with WebEx and some of the SaaS, software as a service cloud technologies. From there, I actually went to move and help other companies. For example, Autodesk. Autodesk is a company that was one of the earliest to go from on-prem to cloud, and I wanted to help them get there. So I helped with their cloud technology and security. Then I went back to Cisco actually to help them with IoT, and then just came from Infor, which is a ERP company also moving to the cloud. And I ran various roles at Infor. I was the CIO, was also the head of cloud operations. I was head of security, customer success, and support operations. So the title was Cloud Technology and Operations. Anything related to moving to the cloud or running the cloud, I essentially ran. And here I am at AWS, and I'll tell you more about what I'm doing at AWS at the end of this presentation. So you would think a Japanese girl who is going to be a housewife, doesn't have an engineering degree. How did I do? I ended up doing pretty well. I've received several awards. I was recognized as Most Powerful Women Next Gen by Fortune. I was also recipient of Women of M2N Machine to Machine IoT Award by Connected World in 2017. I received Women of the Year Award by Women in IT in 2018. And last year, I received 50 Most Powerful Women in Technology Award by National Diversity Council. The point of this is that it doesn't matter what background you have. This technology, you can really do really well if you can figure out how to drive your career. And technology is changing so much that there are always these pivots that you can latch on and continue to be successful. On the flip side, I'm very grateful for the opportunity that I have, the work that I love to do, and there are several things that I do on the side. One is making sure that I can give back. And so at Rutgers University, for example, which also is tied to San Francisco State University here, I am advisor to their big data platform. I also do advisory roles to startups, and I am a board member of Girls in Tech, which is a largest global nonprofit organization to help women get in technology and succeed in technology. So I'm very grateful for the opportunity that I have, and I try to give back. Okay, so let's talk about career advice. Here's what I learned. Everybody's going to have different advices, so please take what is useful for you, and I hope my experience helps you a little bit. So I talked a little bit about take advantage of the technology pivots. And if I think about when I started early to mid 1990s, and you will hear this all the time. The technology is shifting so fast. The rate of change is really fast. Now, on one hand, that could be really overwhelming, but on the other hand, you can actually take advantage of it. And here's an example. In the last 25 plus years that I've been in the industry, we introduced web services, cloud compute, IoT, that's Internet of Things, artificial intelligence, digitization. All these industries that didn't think about web or cloud were starting to move to the cloud. And today, there are lots of distributed cloud. This is when cloud used to be in the data center. For example, in Amazon AWS data center, but now cloud is being extended to all sorts of different locations, including customers' on-prem infrastructure, as well as telcos. We're doing some 5G integration, and it's super exciting times because cloud is no longer somewhere that you go to. It's actually coming closer to everybody who needs it. So here are the key technology that I've watched over the last 25 years. Now, here's how I took advantage of the technology pivots. And this is something that I think is really important. Technology will continue to change, and it is so important that you sense it and you get ahead of it, because otherwise you could get left behind. So when web services came, I joined Schwab, eBay, and PayPal. I mentioned this earlier, but there I learned a lot. I learned about, first of all, I joined as a software engineer, but then I learned a lot about data center, scale, reliability, performance, and security, which, by the way, those first 10 years of my career really defined the rest of my career. And so I was just learning as much as I can, and it really helped me excel my career. And then the second point, when cloud came, this one, I just happened to be at Microsoft when we decided to get into Blue and get into infrastructure as a service. From there, I was very conscious. I thought, okay, I better learn this thing called cloud. It's becoming big. I went to Cisco to learn software as a service, the WebEx, SaaS, Jabber technologies. And then I decided to use that to help other companies move to the cloud at Autodesk. So what did I learn? I learned about cloud technology. I also learned about transformation. And by the way, if you are in your career where you have some strength already and you're in a leadership role, it is so important to learn transformational skills. It is one of the most important skills you can have because technology will continue to change. And this is a skill set that every company will need. And then when 2010, around that time frame, I decided I was going to leverage a lot of what I know and pivot on that transformation skills. And went back to Cisco and helped them with IoT. Let me tell you, I started as a software engineering. I knew nothing about hardware engineering. I had electrical engineers, mechanical engineers, manufacturing plants. I had no idea what I was getting into, and it was really scary. But boy, did I learn a lot. And that's another lesson that I learned, is that you have to have some butterflies in your stomach. If you're not nervous about trying something new, then you're probably not trying hard enough. And then I went to Infor. By learning all those technologies of hardware engineering, manufacturing, supply chain, and IoT, when I went to Infor, I could really help Infor's customers, manufacturing companies, on how to move to the cloud and up along the way. And here I am at AWS working on distributed cloud, and I'm still learning. I'm still learning about not only the distributed network, but telcos. I know very little about telco technology, and I'm learning as fast as I can so I can actually extend the cloud to the edge all the way out to the telco sites. So I talked about leveraging your strength, and this is something that's super important. A lot of times I hear people say, how do I go ahead? And when you think about it, there's several things that I think are really important. One is do what you like. At the end of the day, we spend hours, a lot of time at our job. And if you don't like it, you're just not going to be good at it. So when you do something that you like, you're going to be really good. The other thing is your strength can be a differentiator. So in my case, if you look at the right diagram, I actually used my differentiator as a strength. First of all, I'm a female foreigner, and as you know, there aren't many of us, and I decided I'm going to use that as my strength. I actually embrace diversity. I know that some people with different skills will come to play, and I know how to pick that up and leverage it. And I think the power of teams, leveraging everybody's strength, makes it super strong, and that's made me a really good leader. If you look at the business acumen, I have an economics degree, and initially I was really embarrassed about it. I thought, oh boy, I don't have an engineering degree. I don't want to tell anybody that I have an economics degree. But 10, 15 years into the job, as I got P&L, essentially financial requirements to make sure that I can run a business, it really came in handy. And now I'm proud of it. I'm using that as a strength because many of my friends who have engineering degrees ended up having to go to business school to learn all this. I did it the other way around. I have an economics degree, and then I learned a lot about my technology on the job. I talked about transformative. As I got to try different companies moving to the cloud, I realized I'm really good at it. Not only am I good at looking at new technologies and incorporating it, I also understand that you have to bring everybody along. You can't just go and do it yourself. It's a teamwork, and you got to figure out how to help everybody be successful. So I learned that skill, and that's become my differentiator. On scale, I actually didn't know that was actually my differentiator, and I encourage you to do this this exercise that I've done, which is ask your colleagues, your friends, your family, ask them, what do you think is different about me? And you'll find some interesting questions. For example, the scale was, I had always worked at large companies, so I didn't even realize I was working at large scale infrastructure until somebody told me and said, you always work on large scale infrastructure. So I realized that was actually one of my strengths. And now, after all this experience at the top, I have comprehensive technology. As a software engineer, I learned how to code. As I learned hardware engineering, although I never actually personally built any of them, I learned how to manage it and understand the overall. And then I also, because of those hardware and software, I could pull them together and deliver IoT, Internet of Things. I learned a lot about data centers and how to run infrastructure at scale and security. So now I have this pretty wide set of technology understanding that makes me portable in different settings. And so if you look at how am I different, those are the 5 things that I think of. So I encourage you to do the same thing. Take a look at what's different about you, and please make sure that it's something that's really uniquely different. Think of yourself as a product, right? You don't want to be another software engineer, another product manager who works hard, works well with teams. That's table stakes. Really, really pull out what makes you different. Maybe it's your language skills. Maybe it's your background, your degree. Maybe it's external experiences you have or projects you ran. One of the best things you can do is look at your resume and examine it. And by the way, I do this every year. Look at your resume, rewrite it. This is for yourself. And then pull. What are the key things that's really uniquely different about you that makes it your strength? And also proactively manage it. I used to hear this all the time, and I thought, what is this proactive management of your career? It means that look at what your strength is and think about what else you should add to your resume and really work on it. Maybe go get a job that actually is going to add to that list. Or if you already have a job, go and talk to your boss about what new things, projects, side projects that you can do so you can continue to add to your resume. The last thing you can do is do the same thing, same old, year over year, because that means that you're actually getting left behind. You're not improving. And the last point I want to make on this is that when you find a lot of these improvement points, if you will, you're also going to get a ton of feedback, which is great. But don't get too concerned about thousands of things that you need to improve. We all have them. Identify which ones are really critical, because nobody wins by doing everything mediocre. It's about finding that strength and then identifying anything that's a really showstopper for you to continue to grow. It's probably maybe 1 or 2 things that you need to improve. Focus on those and then continue to drive and leverage your strength. I talked about learning. This is so important. I spend at least 1 hour a day, sometimes more, and then on the weekends, hours of times reading. I read a lot. And that's how I learn. I also tried trying different projects or jobs, but it is so important to do this because you're the only one who can actually make sure this happens. Never get complacent. and take calculated risks, jobs, projects, anything that you can go and learn more skills, and be around smart people. So here's a learning curve that is often quoted. Initially, it's going to be really overwhelming. And like I said, you need to have that butterfly in your stomach to make sure that, you're learning, and it's going to be hard and scary, but that means you're learning. And then somewhere in the middle, you're going to get good at it. It's going to be exciting. You can continue to learn. At some point, you're going to be the pro. That's the point where you don't want to stop there. Put yourself back to that starting point and continue to learn. And to learn, you're going to have these mistakes, hard days, so it's really important to stay positive. This is not something we talk about much, but I really, truly believe that life can be hard. And it's okay to have those days that you're not okay. We have those days. But make sure you recognize them and you figure out how to get out of it and stand up again, because that's how you continue to move forward. And to do that, you need a community. And this is something, again, my lessons learned is that you might think about your life, right? You might say, I'm too busy. My work is too busy to have dinner together with my family or to go hike together with my friends or whatnot. And those days come and go, but do not make that a thing that you continue to do, because at the end of the day, your success is going to depend on them. The community that you have, your friends, your family, your colleagues, they're key to your success. And it's really important to appreciate, take care of them, and you continue to develop them. Let me tell you, when I was younger, I thought, as long as I do a really good job, I code well, I design things, I build business, this whole relationship thing is not that important. And I was wrong. I learned 10 years into my career that this type of relationship really helps you. And today, I have so many friends in every industry, and they help me when I need information. There's some of them actually that are customers or vendors, and I am so grateful that I have such a great community. So I recommend that you invest in your community. Okay, so why am I now here at AWS EC2 Networking? AWS, there are a few things that are really unique about it. One is that it's a learning culture, and like I said, that's super important. We really do try to solve customer issues. We're very focused on problem solving. That's about solving customers' issues. We're very innovative. You probably know this. We're constantly looking at new technologies to solve those customer issues. We're customer obsessed. 90% plus of our innovation comes from listening to our customers. And I think that's really important as a company. I talked about people, AWS being the #1 cloud company by market share. We attract some of the smartest people, and it's great to work with some smart people. By the way, there are many smart people in other companies too. So we'll talk a little bit about, what else you should look at. And then at the end of the day, we're always building. And speaking of building, so why cloud networking? I think cloud networking is ripe for disruption. I talked about how the cloud used to be within the data center, but now it's outside of the data center. It's in customers' branch offices. It's in their data center. It's at telco site. It's everywhere. So it's ripe for disruption. And that shift to distributed cloud really requires us to focus on that user experience. It's getting complex. Networking is everywhere. Cloud networking is everywhere. And our customers are saying, please make it easy and give us some insight. And so there's a lot we need to be doing in terms of improving the user experience and providing more network intelligence. And specifically AWS networking, as I mentioned earlier, we've got an amazing global scale and high availability. We have world-class performance, industry-leading security, global networks, and as I mentioned, bringing the cloud closer to our users. So here's what it looks like. We have 24 regions, 77 availability zones, 216 Amazon CloudFront points of presence, POPs, and redundant 100 gigs links. And we're continuing to build. We're just not stopping. So let me wrap this up by sharing a few things. I talked about important things to consider with your career and how to drive it. At the end of the day, when you're picking your next move, your career, here are a few things that I always recommend everybody to do. One is work. Make sure it's work that you're excited about and it's going to add to your resume. Remember that. It could be your existing company or new company, but super important that you're excited about it and you're learning from it. Company. You want to be with a company that's going to be successful. And when you have a successful company, they will invest and you get to do some pretty interesting work. Team. Make sure you surround yourself with super smart people. They're going to push you. They're going to make you better. And culture. We didn't talk too much about company culture, but this is really important. Here's how it plays out for me. Here's why I'm here at AWS EC2 Networking. The work that I do, I love. And I talked about pivotal moment for cloud networking. That means that it's a shift that I want to drive. I like to be transformative and innovative, so it's a work that I love to do. Company, I talked about scale and innovation and how important that is, that as a company, not only do we have large infrastructure, we also have large set of customers, and they are constantly challenging us to innovate, which is great. It makes us better. Team. There are many companies with many smart people, but I think one of the things that make AWS unique is that we're very humble. We're humbled by the customers who challenge us. We're also humbled by each other because we always make sure that we push each other in a respectful way so we can continue to get better. And that comes from the culture. That customer-obsessed and learning culture is really important. We're always about learning, and therefore, we don't think that we know everything. We listen, we innovate, and we learn from that. So with that, come build the future with us at AWS. Okay, let me see if there are any questions. Okay, there are. I don't know if I can get through them all. Let me see what I can do. What was the biggest challenge moving countries and cultures? Ooh, that's a great question. I think for me, it was about learning that I need to manage my own cultural differences. And here's what I mean. There are certain things that I actually embrace. I like being Japanese, and every culture has good and bad, right? So the good thing about Japanese is that we're very respectful. We're a learning culture anyway, and we're team oriented, and I love that. But the cultural pressure, I can tell you that personally, as I got into my mid 20s, late 20s, early 30s, and I wasn't married yet, the cultural pressure was really hard because my own family would say, why are you working? Why do you have to work? Isn't there a man who can help you and support you? And so I had an identity crisis that I had to manage myself, and that's something I had to do. And as long as you know it's the right thing for you, figuring out what you want to incorporate from your culture and what you're willing to let go, that was hard for me. How to combat the imposter syndrome? I would like to understand that question a little bit more, but I would say that I think we all should be genuine. And I learned this also when I was younger, and obviously when I was insecure. I tried to be somebody that I wasn't. And a perfect example was, I don't really like sports. I don't really watch sports. I like to hike and I do sports myself, but watching TV is not something that I like to do. And watching sport games is not something that I'm just not passionate about. I think it's great, but not for me. And so I pretended to fit in with many of my male colleagues that would go to hockey games and baseball games. And I tried to learn it and I tried to fit in. And I did that in my 20s. And as I got into my 30s, I realized I really don't need to do that. I'm good no matter what I do, and I can connect with people in a different way instead of one way. So I would say, be genuine with yourself, but also recognize, the differences and figure out what you want to incorporate versus not. Okay, how can I leverage an economics degree as a graduate going into high tech? Perfect. Well, that's just what I did. There are a couple of things that most people don't realize. By the way, I grew up thinking I was going to play piano too. Apparently, math, music, economics, many of these areas actually have a common thread. They're pattern detections, and engineering is the same thing. And so I would focus on whether it's economics or engineering or anything that's analytical, leverage that analytical skills. In fact, when I don't hire for specific skills. I don't ask, do you know how to do X, Y, and Z? I'm looking for people who are going to be able to grow, learn, and make sure that they have analytical problem solving skills. That can be transferable across different industries. And that's super important in this world because, as I mentioned, technology changes all the time. So just because you're really good at one technology 10 years ago, it doesn't mean that you're going to be good in the new technology. And so that's why learning and continue to add your skills is so important. And because of that, it also opens up people to come in and try something new too, because everybody's going to start over and learn the new technology. And then, as I mentioned, as you go into leadership, you do need to understand profit and loss statements. You need to understand how to drive revenue versus margin. I am so glad I have an economics degree because I really understand that. Okay, I think I'm running out of time, so I should probably wrap up here. I see many questions. I'll see if I can answer them in another way, possibly offline. But thank you so much for this opportunity. I'm so excited for all of you for having this opportunity. It looks like there's a great agenda ahead. And if you're interested in joining AWS, specifically EC2 Networking, please reach out. We are hiring.